21st Century Entrepreneurship with Martin Piskarik.
We live in this super risky, uncertain and complex world with everything that's going on as it relates to tariffs, for example. There has never been a more important time to have a well thought out strategy that is relentlessly executed. So my background is 25 years working as a strategist. So as a practicing strategist, I've worked with clients all over the world on some of their most complex strategic problems, whether it's strategic planning, scenario planning, their business model, opportunity assessment, you name it, innovation, transformational change. I'm also an adjunct professor, so in that role and that capacity, I volunteer my time to collaborate with faculty at the University of Calgary on applied strategic planning, on research, serving as a lecturer on advanced strategy, and I've published various research papers and points of view over the years. And finally, as an author, as we talked about, I wrote Outside In, Inside Out, but I also wrote Disaster Proof, and I've published various articles in international newspapers and industry magazines on topics critical to leaders. I sit on the board of CEO World Magazine. I write for Chief Executive Magazine. I'm always thinking about important topics for leaders to help them solve problems at the end of the day. In terms of the backdrop of some of the dynamics that are at play right now, I think that there are, a set of big trends that are going on. And a lot of those trends that I see are driven by change. Rupert Murdoch once said that the world is changing very fast. The big will not beat the small anymore. It will be the fast beating the slow. And so we live in this world where there is immense disruption happening. And as a consequence, we see some big trends, which again support the importance of, great strategy, but more importantly, relentless execution. Trend number one is, 1 in 10 CEO appointments fail within the first 2 years. It's incredibly hard to lead right now. Trend number two, 15% of companies in the top growth quartile can sustain performance for at least 30 years. So the ability of companies to sustain performance in the long term, challenging. Trend number three, last year in 2024, we created 147 zettabytes of data. The challenge with all of this data is we don't know what to do with it. We don't use most of it, and we're generating more and more data every year. Trend number four, 8 out of 10 of the world's most populous countries held elections in 2024, which is a massive 4 billion voters. And what that means from a strategic perspective is a huge amount of change from a policy perspective in these respective countries that really has an influence on strategy. Number five, the percentage risk of instability and risk of global catastrophes is at 54%. So we live in an increasingly risky world. Number six, 64% of executives report that they have too many conflicting priorities. So we're trying to do too much at the same time and not focusing enough. Number 7, only 36% of organizations have a talent management strategy, which is surprising because people are what brings a strategy to life within an organization. And I, in fact, dedicate a whole chapter in my book around the role of talent and people and in supporting strategy. Number 8, strategy execution failure is at 90%. So strategies fail mostly because we don't execute them well, 90% of the time. So execution is essential, and half of my book focuses on the importance of execution and how to execute well. Number 9, 2024 was the hottest year on record. And so sustainability, while it might seem like the US is moving away from sustainability for now, and this idea of the trilemma of sustainability, affordability, and security, affordability and security are becoming more important. Strategies have to look at sustainability. Last year was incredibly hot, and the planet is only going to get hotter. And so whether you believe in climate change or not, the reality is that we live in a warming world, and strategically we need to understand the implications on our business and on our organizations. And the final trend number 10, is the increased investment in digital. Digital investment in 2024 was a whopping $2.5 trillion. And so the role that digital plays in terms of strategy is increasingly important, and something that I talk about in the book. So look, I started talking about the speed of change, and I think when you look at these 10 trends, they all play important roles as it relates to strategy. The question that you might ask is, why is strategy so important? Technological advancements, shifting consumer preferences, climate change, global geopolitical events, is particularly important right now. These are some of the key drivers that are rapidly changing, market conditions. And so to stay ahead, my experience is that companies must have a well-defined strategy and an integrated strategy to help them stand out, importantly differentiate, and succeed in a very challenging environment. Look, competition is rife. The world is interconnected. Digital, we talked about, climate, complexity. So while not easy, good strategy and successful execution is more urgent than ever. And the challenge is that there are pitfalls, there are traps along the way that, in the companies that I've worked with over the last 25 years, I've seen them fall into these traps. The traps are, we spend too much time emphasizing strategy development, but not enough time, on execution, or there's a lack of quantitative analysis embedded in the overall analysis. We create strategy in a vacuum without the proper engagement and buy-in of employees, or we don't make the right trade-offs. We confuse practical and blue sky. We don't align on the time frame. We don't simplify strategy so that employees understand, remember, and believe in the strategy. And finally, the other pitfall is just a limited level of strategic flexibility with too many, linear plans. So what I try and do with outside in, inside out is help, people trying to develop a strategy with a simple framework that brings strategy to life and enables successful execution. I wrote the book because I wanted to simplify the strategy development process. I wanted to help readers with the right way to strategize, a framework that manages both the external factors such as customer needs, competition, market dynamics, trends, and internal factors, with inside factors like risk, portfolio, performance management. And I wanted to do it in a way where I provided clear and effective lessons, using real world examples, case studies, techniques that, have been implemented in lots of different companies, and provide an effective overview and an implementable framework that readers can easily follow. And I also wrote the book because, we live in this risky world of business. The business world is fraught with, risk, uncertainty, and complexity. And I think that, this book comes at a time where leaders need clear and robust strategies that consider, the complexity of the organization while calming the fears of risk and uncertainty. In 2024, I mentioned this earlier, like 1 in 10, is actually closer to 1.5 of global CEO appointments failed within the first 24-month period. So this book comes at an important time. I think I guide readers through the various components of strategy development and execution, and importantly, how they fit together in an integrated way. So in terms of critical questions that I think, leaders, entrepreneurs should be thinking about, using case studies from around the world, I looked at, the US, Canada, UK, Australia, Sweden, Finland, Spain, Ireland, you name it. And I tried to think about the critical questions that business leaders are facing today in this business environment. I think it's a combination of, why is strategy more important than ever in today's environment? What are the typical pitfalls? What needs to go right when it comes to strategy? What can we learn from other organizations, both good and bad? What are the most useful frameworks that can add value? What role do leaders play when it comes to strategy, particularly for entrepreneurs? What are the critical themes of strategy in the future, and what does it mean to be balanced in terms of strategy? And importantly, how do you kind of sustain performance? So I looked at, large, medium, and small companies and tried to kind of unpack the answers to, these questions. As it relates to, the framework that I developed, and it, in fact, it's figure 1 in the book, and it's probably the most important tool that any leader, any entrepreneur could get their hands on and utilize and adopt. It's what I call the diamond framework, and it's broken down into 4 segments of the diamond, and it really walks a leader through how to develop a strategy and how to execute. So step 1 of the diamond and the first segment is really the outside in. And this is where I think, leaders and entrepreneurs need to think about what's going on in the outside world. It's about market analysis. It's about understanding your stakeholders, looking at your competitors. It's about using scenarios to inform your thinking around the trends, the risks, the uncertainties in the outside world. And so that first segment, the outside in, is taking that outside information and bringing it into your organization to understand what it means. Step 2 is the inside out. So this is where we're trying to understand, well, how is our company performing? The inside out is really understanding your operating model, your business model, your key risks, your business performance, your portfolio of different products and services that you have, and really getting a robust understanding of your internal strengths and weaknesses. And so you're taking the outside in and the inside out, those first two segments of the diamond, and you should be making winning choices around where to play and how to win. The second part of the diamond, step 3, is, okay, we now understand where we're going to play and how we're going to win. We now need to prepare to execute that strategy. And so this is where we figure out, what are our initiatives? What's our roadmap? Do we have the right people? Are we allocating our money in the right way? Do we have the right operating model, the right structure of our organization and reporting relationships? Are we prepared to execute? It's about setting up the right infrastructure within your business to be successful. And so then by logic, the final step, step 4, is execution. Are we going to execute, and how well are we going to execute? And so execution is around having the right scorecards, so you know how you're progressing. If you're doing deals and acquiring other companies or businesses or individuals, integrating those people and those companies and those individuals. It's about managing your capital, innovating, managing your cost, and executing relentlessly. And so this 4-step process of outside in, inside out, preparing to execute, and execute is really the essence of the diamond. And it's underpinned by, the overall planning process. And successful companies balance their effort between thinking about the outside, thinking about the inside, and also balance their effort in terms of not only spending time on great strategy, but also spending time on relentless execution. Wrapping this all up, one of the questions that you might say is, well, what's the future of strategy? In my view, companies that carefully balance their efforts in development and execution, while also considering the outside and the inside out factors, those will be the ones that most likely succeed. Big trends that we need to keep an eye on: climate change, connectivity, innovation, digitization, are key. If you want to find out more about some of the concepts that I've shared and how to make your company successful, contact me through www.lancemortlock.com to find out more, to read some of my articles, my insights, my perspectives. Look forward to hearing from you.
21st Century Entrepreneurship with Martin Piskarik.
Imagine a space where triumphs, trials, and tales of entrepreneurship come alive. Welcome to the 21st Century Entrepreneurship Podcast, a gold awarded journey hosted by Martin Piskarik, connecting with listeners in 95 countries and ranking in the top 0.5% of all podcasts. Join our exclusive community, elevate your perspective, and embark on the path to success.